The digital numbers on the screen glowed through the dark room with a sharp, piercing blue, marking 11:42 p.m., exactly 1 hour before Elena's 30th birthday. She sat on the velvet cushions of her sofa, a warm mug of black coffee cupped in both hands, watching the live playback of her building's lobby camera feed. Then, the blood in her veins turned to ice. The glass door opened, and a woman wearing her signature emerald green trench coat stepped into the frame. The woman casually unlocked the outer deadbolt from the outside, stepped into the light, and paused under the surveillance camera. Elena stared at the monitor, then down at her own clothes. She was wearing the exact same green coat, slipped over her shoulders against the draft in her living room. But it was not just the coat. The woman on the screen walked with Elena's precise, idiosyncratic posture, her left shoulder hitched slightly higher than the right, a lifelong habit from carrying heavy archive ledgers. Around her neck, a silver pendant shaped like an uncoiled watch spring swung against her collarbone. Her chestnut hair was pinned up with the exact same wooden clip Elena had bought 3 weeks ago at a local craft fair. Elena leaned forward, her heart slamming against her ribs. She was sitting in apartment 1101 on the 11th floor. Yet on the screen her double pressed the elevator button, waited for the doors to slide open, and stepped inside. Elena's fingers trembled against the plastic rim of her coffee mug, sending a splash of dark liquid over the edge to stain the cream-colored wool blanket on her lap. She barely felt the heat. Her mind, trained by nearly a decade of professional archival work at the Municipal Records Office, immediately tried to dismantle the scene into logical components. She was 29 years old, born on October 15th at 12:42 a.m. at St. Jude's Memorial Hospital, according to the certified birth certificate stored in her fireproof safe. The timestamp burned into the bottom right corner of the video read October 14th, 11:42 p.m., 60 minutes before her official birth time 30 years ago. As a senior archivist, Elena knew that numbers were cold, immutable facts. Documents did not lie unless human hands forced them to. She scrambled off the sofa, her knees hitting the rug with a dull thud, and opened the administrative dashboard of her smart home security hub. She bypassed the local interface and queried the remote server in Zurich that logged the building's encryption keys. The server response came back in milliseconds, green and unyielding. The video feed was authentic, untampered with, and broadcast in real time from the lobby encoder. The woman in the emerald coat was currently inside the building. Panic was a luxury Elena had never allowed herself. When her father, Arthur Vance, vanished without a trace 25 years ago, leaving behind an empty car on a coastal cliff road and a house full of half-finished notes, her mother Clara had taught her that emotional reactions solved nothing. Control was the only antidote to loss. Elena stood up, her breath coming in shallow, measured gaps, and pulled her phone from her pocket. She did not wander aimlessly into the hallway. Instead, she walked to her desk, pulled open the drawer containing her emergency supplies, and retrieved a compact digital voice recorder and a heavy steel flashlight. If someone was staging a psychological operation against her, she would document every second of it. Before she could log a video memo, her phone buzzed violently on the desk. The illuminated caller ID read, "Mother." Elena stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the glass. Clara was currently 300 miles away in an orthopedic recovery center following knee surgery. Elena had spoken to her primary nurse only 4 hours ago. She pressed the accept button and put the phone on speaker, keeping it a foot away from her face. No voice greeted her. Instead, through the speaker came the rhythmic, low mechanical hum of an elevator motor overhead, followed by the distinct double chime of an arrival bell, the exact tone of the 11th floor landing. A moment later, a cold click cut the line, leaving only dial tone. Elena did not run to the door. She moved to the far side of her living room, placing the solid oak dining table between herself and the entryway. She opened her phone's secondary security app, which pulled video directly from the hidden peephole camera she had installed herself 2 years prior. On the small screen, the hallway was empty, lit by the standard warm amber sconces. But resting precisely in the center of her welcome mat was an object that had not been there when she came home from work at 6 o'clock. A small package wrapped in heavy brown paper and tied with thick twine. She did not open the door immediately. She pulled up the hall camera logs for the past 3 hours. The video showed no one walking down the corridor, no delivery workers, no neighbors, no figure in a green coat. The package had simply appeared on her mat between camera frames at 11:44 p.m., a 2-second drop in the video stream that suggested a local signal jammer had suppressed the transmission. Elena waited 5 full minutes, monitoring the hall feed to ensure the corridor remained still. Reaching into her hallway closet, she grabbed a long-handled umbrella, unlatched the top bolt, opened the door 6 inches without disengaging the heavy brass safety chain, and hooked the package by its twine, pulling it sliding across the parquet floor into her apartment. She slammed the door, threw both deadbolts, and backed away. Using a pair of archivist shears, she cut the twine and folded back the coarse paper. Inside lay 2 items: a heavy brass key with a complex, non-standard double-notched bit, and a faded yellow index card written in her father's precise architectural calligraphy. On the card were 2 lines of text. The first was a set of geographic coordinates corresponding to an abandoned limestone quarry 50 miles north of the city, the exact site where Arthur Vance's sedan had been found locked and empty in the autumn of 1999. The second line was a date, October 14th, 11:42 p.m. Elena stared at her father's handwriting, feeling a cold knot twist in her stomach. For 25 years, she had believed her father suffered a psychological break or drowned in the quarry lake. Clara had rarely spoken of him, closing the bedroom door whenever Arthur's name was mentioned and throwing away his personal research journals. Yet here was his handwriting, referencing the exact timestamp she had witnessed on the lobby monitor minutes ago. Her phone chimed with a text message. It was from Marcus, her boyfriend of 4 years. "Hey, still up? Just finished a late server deployment at the office. Thinking about driving over to bring you breakfast at midnight for your birthday." Elena looked at the message, her mind replaying a conversation from 3 nights ago. Marcus was a lead systems architect for a regional data infrastructure firm. During a casual dinner at an Italian bistro, he had offhandedly mentioned the unique erosion patterns on the chalk cliffs near the northern limestone quarry, a specific geographical detail about her father's disappearance site that Elena had never shared with him. When she had pressed him on how he knew the area, he had smoothly claimed he worked on a municipal network mapping project in that district years ago. Now, looking at the brass key in her palm, that explanation felt paper-thin. Marcus had entered her life 4 years ago, approaching her at the municipal archives under the pretense of researching historical land deeds for a telecommunications corridor. He had been patient, steady, and impeccably supportive, a calm anchor for her cautious, structured personality. Was his presence in her life a coincidence, or had he been stationed beside her like an observer assigned to a long-term research subject? A sharp metallic knock shattered the silence of the room. It did not come from her front door. It echoed directly through the drywall of her living room, from apartment 1102, the adjacent unit. Building management had informed Elena when she signed her lease 6 years ago that 1102 was sealed, wrapped in an ongoing probate battle between distant heirs of an estate, its utilities disconnected and its doors locked. Yet the sound repeated, 3 slow, deliberate raps against the plaster, followed by a faint, scraping sound like heavy furniture being shifted across raw concrete. Elena picked up her heavy flashlight and approached the shared wall. She did not shout or strike the plaster. Instead, she pressed her ear against the cold wallboard and listened. Through the soundproofing layers, a low, melodic sound drifted into her living room. Someone on the other side was softly humming a tune, a rhythmic minor-key lullaby with a distinct, archaic cadence. Elena's breath caught in her throat. It was an obscure regional lullaby from the mountain village where her father had grown up, a song Arthur used to sing to her when she was 5 years old to help her sleep through severe thunderstorms. No recorded version of the song existed. It was an oral traditional piece passed down through Arthur's family. Clara had refused to sing it after Arthur vanished, calling it a morbid remnant of a life they needed to forget. Elena pulled her phone out and opened her personal digital cloud storage, where she kept digitized copies of the building's original 1988 architectural plans, documents she had personally scanned from the city archives when she moved in. She zoomed in on the 11th floor structural framing layout. The drawings revealed something the modern floor plans omitted. Between apartment 1101 and 1102 ran a 2-foot-wide utility ventilation shaft running vertically from the basement to the roof HVAC room. The schematic showed a secondary maintenance access hatch located inside the master bedroom closet of Unit 1101, designed for building engineers during construction, but covered over during a mid-90s interior remodel. She walked into her bedroom, opened her wardrobe, and pushed aside her organized rows of coats and work dresses. She shone her flashlight against the cedar back panel of the closet. In the corners, almost hidden by thick coats of white paint, were 4 heavy industrial hex bolts. She touched the paint around the top left bolt. The seal was cracked, and fine gray dust dusted the floorboards beneath it. Someone had unfastened these bolts recently. Elena knew she needed proper tools. She went to her entryway closet, where Marcus kept a small canvas toolkit he used when repairing small fixtures around her apartment. She unzipped the canvas pouch and rummaged through his tools until she found an adjustable socket wrench. As she lifted the wrench, a small black leather notebook slipped out from a side pocket of the bag. She caught it before it hit the floor. On the first page, written in Marcus's tidy block handwriting, was a structured timeline stretching back 4 years. It listed dates, times, and brief clinical observational notes. March 12, 2022. Subject completed annual medical exam. Blood panels normal. Memory retentions regarding childhood events show zero drift from baseline. November 4th, 2023. Subject experienced mild anxiety regarding father's anniversary. Administered verbal grounding protocols. Baseline restored. October 1st, 2026. Phase 3 preparation complete. Subject's 30th birthday synchronization approved by regional oversight. Elena's hands went completely numb. The notebook was not a personal journal. It was an active observational log. The man she had shared her life with for 4 years, the man who had cooked dinner in her kitchen and held her hand when she had nightmares about her father, was tracking her as a subject in a clinical timeline. A heavy footstep sounded in the hallway outside her front door. Elena did not freeze. The archivist in her, accustomed to analyzing crisis records and cold facts, took over. She grabbed her heavy coat, slipped the brass key and her father's index card into her pocket, secured the socket wrench in her right hand, and kept her phone on video recording mode. She knew that leaving through the front door meant stepping directly into whatever trap Marcus or his associates had set in the corridor. The hidden utility shaft was her only unmonitored path out of the living area. She returned to the bedroom closet, fitted the socket onto the hex bolts, and worked with rapid, methodical efficiency. The bolts had been lubricated recently. They turned smoothly, without screeching. She removed all 4, set them on the closet shelf, and pulled the cedar panel toward her. Cold, dry air rushed out of the opening, carrying the sharp scent of ozone, aged paper, and concrete dust. Behind the panel lay a narrow concrete shaft equipped with fixed steel rungs running down into the darkness. A thick, dark fiber optic cable was clamped against the concrete, running parallel to the ladder down into the depths of the building. Elena stepped into the shaft, pulled the wooden panel back into place behind her as tightly as possible to hide her departure, and began her descent. She counted the ladder rungs as she climbed down, 18 rungs per floor. The air grew progressively cooler and drier as she passed the lower residential levels, indicating a high-volume climate control system active in the basement, an anomaly for a standard residential apartment building. When she reached the basement level, 50 feet below her apartment, the ladder terminated at a narrow steel platform positioned before a heavy fire door. The door was unlocked, resting half an inch open against its frame. Elena pushed it open gently with the tip of her flashlight, stepping onto a polished epoxy floor. She found herself in a wide, subterranean corridor extending beneath the building's foundation. The walls were lined with clean white acoustic panels, and overhead fluorescents cast a bright, shadowless illumination down the hallway. This was not a standard maintenance basement. It was an engineered archive facility, meticulously climate-controlled to 55 degrees Fahrenheit and 30% humidity, the precise museum standard for long-term document preservation. She walked down the corridor, her rubber-soled shoes making quiet taps against the epoxy. Ahead, behind a wall of reinforced plate glass, lay a central control room filled with server racks, high-definition monitors, and flat-file document cabinets identical to the ones she managed at the municipal archives. Sitting in an ergonomic chair behind the primary console was an elderly woman wearing a dark wool sweater. Her silver hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and her posture was remarkably straight despite her age. On the central monitor before her was a multi-screen display showing live camera feeds from inside Elena's apartment, the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom closet, and even the interior of her safe. Elena stopped at the glass door, her fingers tightening around the heavy socket wrench. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady, low, and resolute. The elderly woman did not startle. She turned slowly in her chair, revealing a weathered face marked by deep lines around the eyes. But her features, the high cheekbones, the slight asymmetry of the nose, the shape of the jaw, were undeniable. She looked like Elena would look in 30 or 40 years. On the desk beside her rested a cup of tea, steam rising into the dry air, and an open leather-bound ledger. "You brought the wrench," the woman said softly. Her voice carried the exact timbre and cadence of Elena's own voice, deepened by decades of age. "I always wondered if you would take a weapon or a tool. I took the iron paperweight when I came down here 30 years ago." Elena took 2 steps into the room, keeping her distance. "Stop speaking in riddles. You are the woman from the lobby video." "I am," the woman replied, gesturing toward the green trench coat hanging on a rack near the door, identical to the one Elena was wearing. "I walked through the lobby at 11:42 p.m. to trigger the camera feed. I needed you to see me. I needed you to break your routine, look at the architectural plans, find the shaft, and come down here before midnight." "Why?" Elena's gaze flicked to the desk, taking in a stack of yellowed medical dossiers, land survey documents from 1996, and photographs of her father. "What is this place? And why do you have my face?" The woman reached out and pulled a heavy paper file from the rack, setting it on the edge of the desk between them. I am not a ghost, Elena, nor am I a clone or a time traveler. My name is Elena Vance. I was born in 1966. I am 60 years old tonight. And you are my daughter. Elena's heart missed a beat. That's impossible. My mother is Clara Vance. She gave birth to me at St. Jude's Hospital 30 years ago. Clara is my sister, the older woman said quietly, her eyes filling with a fierce, restrained sorrow. And she raised you with absolute devotion, but she did not give birth to you. Look at the record. You know how to read an archive. She slid the top folder toward Elena. Elena hesitated, then stepped forward and opened the cover. Inside was an official medical intake log from the State University Research Hospital dated October 14, 1996. Attached was a birth certificate for a female infant born at 11:42 p.m. to Elena Vance and Arthur Vance. The infant's footprints were stamped in black ink at the bottom of the page. Beside it was a second document, a falsified registration form created 6 hours later by Clara Vance, who worked as the chief record clerk at St. Jude's. Clara had altered the mother's name to her own, pushed the official birth timestamp forward by exactly 60 minutes to October 15 at 12:42 a.m., and deleted the original entry from the county mainframe. Why? Elena whispered, staring at her mother's handwriting on the forged certificate. Why would Clara forge my birth record? Why would my own mother? Because of what Arthur discovered, the older woman interrupted gently. She clicked a control on the desk, and a side monitor lit up, displaying a black and white video recording from 1996. On the screen stood Arthur Vance, 30 years younger, wearing thick work gloves and adjusting a large, complex optical scanning apparatus set up in a concrete chamber. Your father was a brilliant structural engineer and a pioneer in optical data storage, the elder Elena explained, watching the screen with a mixture of fondness and pain. In 1994, he was hired by a private technological consortium funded by local real estate developers and municipal figures to design a secure subterranean vault beneath this building for the permanent storage of classified land deeds, corporate tax records, and high-density optical backups. But Arthur was an ethical man. While calibrating the vault's infrastructure, he discovered what the consortium was actually doing. She pulled a series of land deeds from the folder and spread them across the table. They were using this facility to systematically alter property records, erase historical environmental liabilities, and forge corporate ownership documents worth billions of dollars. When Arthur threatened to take the physical original ledgers to the federal prosecutor, the consortium moved against him. In October 1996, weeks before you were born, they realized Arthur had hidden the master cryptographic key, the physical evidence that proved their entire digital database was a fraud, somewhere inside his personal files. His disappearance, Elena said, the pieces beginning to lock together in her mind. He didn't abandon us. No, the elder Elena said, her voice trembling slightly. He was killed. They staged his disappearance at the limestone quarry in November 1999, after years of trying to force him to hand over the key. But before they took him, Arthur knew his family was in danger. He came to me and Clara with a plan. He had hidden the master key inside an encrypted physical medium that could only be accessed using a specific biometric signature, a combination of retinal patterns and neural response curves that belonged to his biological child. The elder Elena stood up slowly, walking to a secondary glass cabinet filled with optical storage disks. I was 29 years old when you were born in this vault facility on October 14, 1996, while Arthur was in hiding. To protect you from the consortium, Clara agreed to take you, forge your birth records, and raise you as her own daughter in the public eye. They made you an archivist, guided your education, and trained your mind to be obsessed with verification and order, so that when the time came, you would have the skills to handle the truth. Elena stared at the woman before her, her mind reeling. If you are my mother, why did you leave me? Why did you let Clara raise me while you stayed hidden? Because the consortium watched me every single day, the elder Elena said, reaching out to touch her daughter's cheek with a trembling finger. If I had raised you, they would have known who you were immediately. I had to disappear. I took a job inside this secret underground facility under an assumed identity, working as the night archivist for the very consortium that killed Arthur. For 30 years I have lived in these concrete rooms beneath your feet, maintaining their servers, waiting for you to turn 30, the age specified in Arthur's vault protocol for the key release. And Marcus? Elena asked, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper as she remembered the black notebook. Who is Marcus? Before the elder Elena could answer, the glass door at the end of the corridor clicked open. Marcus stepped into the control room. He was wearing his dark rain jacket, his hair damp from the autumn drizzle outside. He did not look like a killer or a cold operative. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a combination of stress, guilt, and profound relief. "Elena," Marcus said, stopping 10 feet away and raising his hands, palms open. "Please don't run. Let me explain." Elena tightened her grip on the socket wrench, taking a defensive step back. "You were logging my life. Every anxiety attack, every medical exam, every conversation about my father. You were watching me for 4 years." "I was assigned to protect you," Marcus said, his voice cracking slightly with emotion. "I work for the Federal Financial Crimes Task Force. We have been investigating the consortium that built this vault for over a decade. 4 years ago, we realized the consortium had placed a tracker on your municipal archive credentials, waiting for you to turn 30 so they could use you to unlock Arthur's hidden ledger and destroy it forever." He pulled his official federal badge from his interior pocket and set it gently on the console table, sliding it toward her. "My job was to infiltrate their local security network, get close to you, and ensure you remained safe until your 30th birthday. I was supposed to be a detached agent. I was supposed to just monitor your stability curve and report to my superiors, but I fell in love with you, Elena. Every note in that book was written to prove to my handlers that you were mentally stable, that you were ready, and that you shouldn't be taken into protective custody before you had the chance to learn the truth about your father." "You lied to me every single day," Elena said, tears finally breaking through her cold composure, burning her eyes. "Every time I talked about my anxiety, every time I trusted you, you were just writing a report." "I lied about my assignment, yes," Marcus admitted, taking a half step forward, his eyes pleading, "and I will regret that for the rest of my life. But I never lied about how I feel about you. The consortium knows tonight is the night. Their agents are outside the building right now, waiting for the clock to strike midnight. They think I am going to bring you down here to unlock the vault for them." The elder Elena walked over to the central console, picked up the brass key that Elena had set down, and fitted it into a keyhole on the master server rack. "Marcus is telling the truth about the consortium, Elena. They are coming. This key opens the physical drive housing Arthur's original evidence, the records that will dismantle the entire criminal network, clear your father's name, and bring justice to the people who destroyed our family." A red indicator light on the main wall panel began to flash silently. The clock on the monitor read 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes until midnight. "The server protocol requires 2 physical actions to release the data," the elder Elena said, looking directly into her daughter's eyes. "It requires this brass key which Arthur left for you, and it requires your physical fingerprint and retinal scan on the primary reader. If you scan your hand, the files will be broadcast instantly to the Federal Task Force servers, exposing the consortium forever." She paused, her voice growing heavy with solemn weight. "But you need to understand the stakes, Elena. Once those files are broadcast, our hidden life here ends. The consortium will be dismantled, but your official identity, the name Elena Vance, your job at the municipal archives, your apartment upstairs, your birth certificate, your entire structured, quiet life will be dissolved in the court proceedings. You will have to testify. You will have to face Clara, who committed federal perjury to protect you. You will have to decide whether you can ever forgive Marcus. Your safe, predictable world will be entirely gone." The red light flashed faster, 11:59 p.m. "And if I refuse?" Elena asked, looking from her mother's aged face to Marcus's tense, waiting expression. "What if I just turn around, walk back up the shaft, and pretend I never opened that panel?" "Then I press the purge button on this console," the elder Elena replied quietly. "The server will wipe Arthur's evidence forever. The consortium will never get the key, but they will also never be prosecuted. You can walk back upstairs, wake up tomorrow as a 30-year-old archivist with a quiet job, a fake birth certificate, and a safe, comfortable illusion. You can go back to sleep, Elena. That is the choice Arthur wanted you to have." The digital clock on the wall ticked over to 12 a.m. A soft, clear chime echoed through the underground bunker. October 15th, her 30th birthday. Elena stood frozen between the 2 choices. On one side lay the sterile, minimalist sanctuary she had built upstairs, a life constructed of dust-free steel cabinets, neat routines, and verified schedules that protected her from the terrifying unpredictability of the world. It was a comfortable cage, built on her Aunt Clara's loving lies and Marcus's watchful surveillance, but it was safe. On the other side lay the cold, chaotic light of truth, an ongoing war against powerful men, the destruction of her personal history, the complex grief of her father's murder, and the terrifying necessity of deciding who she was without a script. She looked at her hand, the fingers still dusted with gray concrete powder from the hidden shaft. She looked at the silver spring pendant around her mother's neck, identical to the one she wore herself. Then she looked at Marcus, seeing for the first time the genuine fear and hope warring in his face. Elena did not speak. She stepped past Marcus, walked directly to the master server console, and placed her right hand firmly onto the glowing glass screen of the optical reader. The terminal beeped twice, a sharp green light sweeping over her palm and iris. Across the wall of monitors, thousands of lines of encrypted data began to cascade in bright, rapid streams, routing directly through the federal network node. High-frequency drive arrays hummed to life throughout the room, spinning up with a powerful sound like a turbine engine taking flight. On the central screen, a single master file opened, revealing Arthur Vance's final signature, crisp and clear beneath an official state seal. Marcus let out a long, ragged breath and immediately pulled a secure satellite phone from his jacket, pressing speed dial to signal the federal entry team waiting in the streets above. Elena's mother reached out and placed her hand over Elena's on the console. Their skin matched, the same fine lines, the same shape of the knuckles, the same steady pulse beating beneath the surface. For 30 years, Elena had sought safety in records written by strangers, cataloging the dead histories of a city that did not know her name. Now, standing 50 feet beneath the concrete, surrounded by the whirring machinery of her father's final legacy, she felt the cold anchor of her artificial past slip away. Outside the heavy steel door, far up the vertical shaft, the muffled sound of building alarms began to wail through the dark corridors, shattering the quiet night. Elena did not flinch from the noise. She stood straight beside her mother, watching the data flood the screens, her eyes wide open in the bright, unfiltered light.